Redditors, what's the worst thing you've eaten out of politeness? I am actually the one who made the horrible meal. When I was around 8, I decided I wanted my mom to relax while I cooked her dinner and did the dishes. I made way overcooked spaghetti with a plain can of diced tomatoes that I added water to because I thought that is how sauce worked. Finished it off with every seasoning herb we own plus some ketchup because the sauce looked a little too much like water, and oh, heck, some mustard, mayo, and any sauce I saw in the fridge because she liked all those things. My mom took her first bite, smiled through it, told me how much she enjoyed not having to cook, then ate every freaking bite on her plate. She told me much later on that she ate the dinner I made her because she didn't want to discourage me from taking initiative and trying new things. She also later told me it was the most god-awful thing she had ever eaten in her life. Also, after this episode, my mom made a point to actually teach me how to cook. I think she taught me pretty well. Or maybe she is still lying to me to make me feel better. My beloved but very elderly grandma-in-law made chocolate chip cookies in which she messed up the sugar and salt and mistook the dried black beans in her cupboard for chocolate chips. Oh dear. There was an old Italian woman a few years ago who gave her family some hot chocolate, using some powdered stuff that had expired in 1990, and gave them all food poisoning. Sounds about right. Was at my grandma's house for dinner one night, and afterwards we inquired about whether she had any ice cream. She thought for a second, and said she might have peach ice cream in the downstairs freezer. My dad and I went down, opened the ice cream, and something was just off. We didn't taste it, but soon found out it was expired 9 years past. How she even remembered it was there is beyond me. A girl I dated was trying to impress me, so she tried to make green curry. She added too much curry paste, and we both sat there sweating and crying. At least she ate it too, haha. I eat spicy food, but curry paste is extremely concentrated. This dish was comically spicy El Mayo, like inedible levels. We should have stopped TBH El Mayo. I came home from school one day and was hungry and told my mother that, and she told me there was blueberry muffins. So I took one, and when I took a bite it was the driest, most flavorless thing I've ever eaten. So as to not upset my mother, I ate it, and when I came back my mom was laughing and I asked what was funny, and she told me they were a friend of hers muffins and my brother had spit them out when he tried it. So basically I got pranked by my mom. I thought this was going a different route, and the blueberries was actually blue mold. Oh man, a friend of mine did this. Ate a blueberry muffin in the dark kitchen when he was drunk, and when he looked in the AM the rest were covered in mold. When my sister was 5, she had my mom, friend, and I sit for her tea party. She made us drinks. I asked her what she gave us, and she said it was water and sparkle perfume. Not sure what water she put in there. It was like drinking rubbing alcohol. But we let her have her moment. My little sister made me puke once because she made me tea, and like a good brother, I downed the tiny teacupful in one drink. It was hand sanitizer mixed with water. My grandpa made sushi, with tuna, rhubarb, yellow mustard, seaweed, and undercooked rice. Watched me eat it, make sure I got a taste of each ingredient. The entire time I ate it, I thought, this tough bastard made it through the beaches of Normandy. Eat the sushi and smile. This reminds me of my grandma making pizza. She had all of us cousins over, and had heard that kids like pizza these days. Italians we are not. But the only thing she really knew about pizza was that it had a bread base, and that you can just put anything you like on top of it. Grandma made a mashed potato pizza. It doesn't really belong on this thread though, as while it was weird, it was oddly tasty. Was working in China. They had a big celebratory banquet for us. They served a local delicacy, sea worms. It was a white tube that when immersed in near freezing water essentially dissolved into a gelatinous lump. Think fish-flavored jello, with just a hint of residual gristle. Ugh. Had to eat several servings while downing shots of Maohai. Chitlins, it's boiled pig intestines. My husband begged me to try it. It's his favorite dish. I tried a small bite. It tasted like straight shit. Straight fermented shit. I told my friend about my experience, and she insisted it just wasn't prepared right and I needed to try hers. I went to her house and saw that she prepares hers with green peppers and onions. I was reluctant but hopeful. I took a bite. It tasted like straight fermented shit with a side of green peppers and onions. I was nice and I took 2 bites, but I couldn't stomach anymore. I was in a LTR with a woman who made chitlins for her family during the holidays. When the big day came, she came from the store with those raw intestines and started the cleaning process, pulling out some kind of lining, getting the residual hay and other stuff out, then lots of washing. I was morbidly fascinated by the process. It didn't smell as bad as I imagined either. So, she starts cooking them and they were boiling away with a lid on the pot. Smell is a bit worse now, but I stayed out of the kitchen. She had to run to the store and told me to not lift the lid on the chitlin pot. She was hoping I would try them at dinner, but I hadn't made any promises. So of course I strolled over to the stove the minute she left and lifted the lid. Holy fuck. Pure shit steam hit my face and I ran gagging out of there. It was like concentrated full-on nastiness. She saw my face when she came back and said, "You did it, didn't you?" End of story. I still have never and never will eat chitlins. My ex-sister-in-law's spinach casserole. My daughter puked it up into their heat vent, and I had to clean it out. My husband's grandma made us a miso soup that was almost black from teriyaki and soy sauce in it. All of the vegetables in it were slimy and overcooked. It so barely resembled miso that the next day I made some regular miso for myself, and she was offended that I didn't eat the perfectly good leftovers. I was all confused until my husband whispered to me that she thought the abomination she served us was miso soup. Girlfriend in college wanted to be nice to my roommate and me because she often ate over at our apartment, so she was to cook dinner one night. Teriyaki steak. Somewhere along the line, she got tablespoon and cup mixed up and added 3/4 cup of salt. Pretty sure we were nearing the LD50 of salt for a human, but I ate as much as I could and drank as much water as I could for the next few days. Jesus, you would think, but one time my old man made a German chocolate cake and I guess instead of 3/4 cups vegetable oil, he used 3 cups. It was an abomination. 3 or 4 cups? Better play it safe. My grandma died right before Christmas. We all got together for the holiday and my aunt was understandably still taking it really hard. She'd made something she called Vanilla Angel Food Pudding Cake. It was in a shallow casserole dish. Top layer was whipped cream and cookie crumble. Middle layer was vanilla pudding. Bottom layer was crumbled angel food cake, soaked to the top in a massive pool of bourbon. The cake was floating in the bourbon. We'd later found out she mixed even more bourbon into the pudding layer. She didn't tell anyone it was alcoholic, so we all got scoops assuming it was a syrup or something. My cousin was the first to bite into it and had to run to the trash can to vomit as soon as it got in her mouth. Another person got a forkful near their nose and freaked out and yelled in shock. Cue my aunt beginning to completely melt down about how she's trying so hard and she got the recipe from a friend and it's not that much alcohol and grandma was such a good cook she would have helped her, etc., like full blown about to lose it. The cousin that vomited tried to claim it was something else while the yeller tried to play off that they saw a bug across the room. Everyone else was sufficiently guilted into eating at least some of what they'd scooped onto their plates. That shit was physically painful to eat. Everything burned. Looking around the table, you would have thought we were all downing spoonfuls of wasabi. Was visiting Guatemala, and this old lady invited us to dinner. In this country, it's extremely rude to not eat what was placed before you. Unfortunately, this lady served us a vegetable soup with some meat in it that tasted like chicken broth from hell. She didn't eat with us, as she was being polite or something. She didn't even talk to us during the dinner. We took a taste, and nearly wanted to puke. However, due to the country customs, we decided to eat it. We barely could get through it. We ate about 3/4 of it, and then mentioned we were just full. We both retched later on that night. It was so nasty. Ran into the lady later in the week walking down the street, and she apologized to us. Apparently the chicken was rotten, and she only took 1 bite. She then chastised us for not telling her. Sometimes it's frustrating not knowing all the ins and outs of different customs. Back in the late 1970s, I was sent from California to a rural Maryland town for a 6-month job assignment. I was used to the wide variety of very fresh vegetables grown within a couple of hours of my city. In that rural Maryland town, I rarely saw what I would consider good fresh vegetables, except for a very short season when farmers' markets had local produce. I really missed my good veggies. I rented part of a house that had been converted to apartments. The nice elderly couple next door had a huge vegetable garden, consisting primarily of green beans. I used to lust after those beans. One day, Mrs. Neighbor saw me outside and invited me to join them later in the day for a barbecue. "We are going to have the first of our own green beans." I could hardly wait. I was so looking forward to those beans. Mr. Neighbor barbecued and Mrs. Neighbor plated the food in the kitchen. With great pride, she handed me a plate containing an incinerated steak and a bunch of gray tubes. "We like our green beans best after they've been canned." Yep. She had home-canned the green beans, then cooked them, Southern style, for an hour or so with a chunk of ham. I looked at my plate. I looked over at all those crisp, vibrant beans still on the plants. I looked back at my plate. I never knew I possessed such good acting ability. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.